Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Power Women Summit. I'm Samantha Barry, the editor-in-chief of Glamour, and I'm really excited about this panel because it is amazing women that you'll get to listen to about all of their work in entrepreneurial work, and you might, I think, take a lot away from this. So let's bring them out. We've got Olivia Culpa, who's a model, actor, entrepreneur, and activist. She most recently collaborated with Macy's to launch a collection in response to COVID-19. She partnered with Express on their Express Together collection and founded More Than a Mask, which is a line of non-surgical face masks, donating a portion of the sales to Feeding America and Color of Change. Welcome, Olivia. We've also got Katie Activeria Rosen Kitchens. She's the co-founder and editor-in-chief of FabFitFun, which has evolved into one of the most loved membership services in the world. It spans beauty and fashion and fitness and more. As the editor-in-chief, Katie oversees all of the content around FabFitFun, which includes its magazine, video, online, and she also spearheads a lot of the charity initiatives for the company. Hi, Katie.
Hey.
Whitney Port, you may know as somebody who rose to fame on MTV's The Hills and The City. Since then, she's founded a really successful clothing line, Whitney Eve, and has launched collaborations with everybody from Rent the Runway to In Favor Of. She shares continuously to her fans and her audience beauty and fashion and lifestyle and parenting tips on whitneyport.com, her YouTube channel, and also her podcast, With Wit. Hi, Whitney.
Hi.
Lisa Price is the founder of Carol's Daughter. It's a beauty brand that she started in her Brooklyn kitchen in the 90s. It was acquired by L'Oreal in 2014 and has over 1,800 employees today. During the Obama administration, Lisa was appointed to the National Women's Business Council, where she advised on issues facing female business owners, which is what we're going to be tackling today. Welcome, Lisa.
Hi, nice to be here.
And Alexis Wren is an entrepreneur, model, and activist with a following over 16 million strong. This year, she launched 2 new projects even. Future Prosperity, which is a regenerative lifestyle brand and an e-commerce platform, and Warriors, which is a female-driven online health and wellness community. And I think when we talk about businesses, we're going to talk a lot about community today. But welcome. Thank you so much for joining this conversation. I want to start out, though, with the title of entrepreneur, which you all have under your bow now. But a lot of the people that will be tuning in to this are either about to take that move or interested in what that would look like to be an entrepreneur. Most of you didn't set out, at least in your first versions of your career, as entrepreneurs, right? Whitney, you were a reality TV star working in corporate. Olivia and Alexis, you both started as models. Katie, you were a successful editor and writer and a producer. Lisa, you had a career in TV production. Can you tell me, I want to kind of go around all of you, was there a moment or was it a progression into being an entrepreneur? And I'll start with you, Lisa, because I had a job in TV production before, so I'd love to know how you went from TV production to beauty entrepreneur.
It was something that definitely was gradual. What I loved about TV production was that it wasn't boring. I used to work in corporate before that. TV production allowed me to be creative. And I think that's what sparked that entrepreneurial spirit. It sparked me going into my kitchen and making recipes and doing things. And initially, I really looked at it as, well, whenever I have kids, and it would be really hard to keep up with the 20-hour days that go with television production, I could do this job at home and, balance the income and take care of the family and all that kind of stuff. I didn't know that it would pretty much take over my life. I didn't realize that I was becoming an entrepreneur at the time, but being in television production prepared me for it and allowed it to be a possibility in my eyes.
Olivia, you started off as a model. Did you become an accidental entrepreneur, or was it very much a strategic path you wanted to go on early?
Well, it was a strategic path in some regard. I think that just even growing up, my dad always used to make fun of me because any job I could have in his restaurants, I would take, whether it was counting Keno cards. He would do a lot of, I don't even know if there's Keno everywhere, but counting watering cards basically, and saving up money, showing him what I have in my shoebox. And I think the other thing that's really important to me in general in life is just kind of being able to have a vision and see it come to fruition. And honestly, it's people like Lisa that I look up to, and I can't get enough of stories like that. And I find myself at this point in time I haven't done anything compared to what Lisa has achieved, for example, but I think it's just kind of seeing the vision in your head come to life is what I love to do and love to see. But then also I think from a young age, I always had that sort of spirit of working really hard and having goals, and if there's a will, there's a way, knocking down doors, stuff like that. That is also a very fun part of having an entrepreneurial spirit.
That's great. Whitney, was there a moment that stands out from you where you wanted to go from employee to entrepreneur that stands out for you, or that you think about in your journey to running this brand and this empire?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like Olivia, I grew up watching my dad be an entrepreneur and working for him, and he was in the fashion industry. So I got a lot of insight into what that looked like and kind of wanted to follow in his footsteps, and had a lot of different jobs as a teenager. I remember my first job was a holiday gift wrapper at a boutique on Montana and Santa Monica. And now I think because there wasn't one box that I really felt like I fit into, there wasn't one job or one role that I felt was perfect for me. It was really, there were so many different hats that I wanted to wear and so many roles that I wanted to take. And so being an entrepreneur just felt so natural to me. It felt like I could really allow my passions to drive my career and do a lot of different things. And I feel so lucky to be able to do it all.
Great. Thanks, Whitney. Katie, your career has always been in content, but it's very much now in this world of business is at the forefront of your job role. And I think I've seen a lot of people in the media industry become much more business minded than just content. Maybe they have a heart of somebody from editorial heart and a business head is how I describe it. What was the moment for you? Was it taking FabFitFun on this journey to becoming this big subscription behemoth?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, FabFitFun was really that moment for me. You know, when we founded FabFitFun, as you mentioned, we were a media brand, and I was running the site as editor-in-chief. And at the time, and I'm going to date myself a little bit, but, media was very much ruled by, high fashion glossy magazines, really telling women, what they were supposed to look like and how they were supposed to act, to kind of fill a very narrow version of beauty, if you will. And, as a Puerto Rican, Jewish, chubby girl with lots of curly hair who definitely did not fit those stereotypes, we wanted to create something a little bit different, not your high fashion authority, but more like your best friend that just happens to know everything about, beauty, wellness, fashion, you name it. And we were lucky to build up a following pretty quickly, but that hustle for ad revenue, especially at the time when so much of media was dying, was just incredibly hard. And I think, even more importantly, we knew that we wanted to evolve the business and make it something bigger. We didn't want to just tell our readers about products. We wanted to actually get them the products and offer them that same excitement and discovery we were experiencing as editors, really testing and writing about the products. And so we launched the box in the spring of 2013, and it sold out in 24 hours. And it really was the rebirth of the company and the rebirth of my role as curator-in-chief, now negotiating deals, overseeing product development, e-com, biz dev, all things that I had to very quickly learn on the job. And, it was pretty scary. I think oftentimes we really box ourselves into, what we think we are good at. And as someone who certainly thought of herself as a creative, this new world was pretty daunting. But I do love a challenge, and the ability to learn basically an entirely new set of skills in my 30s has been really rewarding. And since then, we've grown to over 1.5 million members in the US, Canada, and UK. We've launched ongoing e-com flash sales, started FabFitFun TV, created our own private social media platform that we call Our Community, and evolved our sort of standard 8 chosen product offering into a fully customizable experience.
And I want to come back to some of those things in a little while, because all of you work in different markets and different revenue models, whether it's subscription or product or commerce, and a lot of you have commerce elements to your businesses. And I think a lot of people tuning in right now will have questions about what, that daunting task of what revenue model to look at for whatever their business or their brand is. And sometimes it's a mix of all of them. But Alexis, I want to talk to you as, I think, the youngest person on the panel. What are you hearing from the Gen Zers and the young millennials that want to start their own thing? And how did you make that jump yourself?
Growing up in social media, I saw that there's so much information, right? Like all of it's open to anyone. You want to learn how to make music, just YouTube it. You want to do, so there's this like new level of access that I saw, especially with even kids younger than me. And there's also, people are so open with their creativity, especially kids now. Like they're fearless. Like we see all these kids on TikTok just owning it with the dances, and there's just this essence of confidence that I've watched, admired, been in it. And so then there's, of course, they evolve into wanting to do their own thing, wanting to express themselves in some way. And so for me, like I'm definitely like a newbie in the entrepreneur space, but it's always been something that's been in my heart, just simply because I just wanted to show girls that, are even underage, that they can start their own businesses, that they can do these things all by themselves, that they can create an identity outside of society's like restrictions sometimes. So I also grew up watching my mom. She was a stay-at-home mom, but she always tried to do like an online business. She was a health nutritionist. So like seeing her like battling, like being a mom and then also like running a side business, like that was really inspiring to me. And I knew I wanted to get into creating something of my own when I just realized that I had so many stories that I wanted to tell, and I wanted to share that in the form of whether it be products or a community or a movement. So only in the last year has this really manifested into my experience, but it's been a crazy journey already.
I love it. It's so interesting that the thread through all of your stories is the person in your home or around you that inspired you or even gave you the kind of validation that you can do it because you watch them go into business. Entrepreneurs wear many hats, right? And they have to take on they have to make choices. And I want to talk a little bit about all of you, about those choices that you make or you don't make as entrepreneurs. Olivia, earlier, when I introduced you, we talked about the partnership with Express. We talked about partnering with Macy's. I'm sure you get a lot of offers. How do you decide what collaboration, what partnerships will work for you and what ones you want to do completely solo?
Well, it is really, really difficult sometimes to make the right decision, but it's definitely trial and error. And I think I try not to be very fear-based in any decision that I do make. But honestly, for me, what I found to be very important is creating accessibility. So for example, Macy's, I love partnering with Macy's because I feel like that demographic reminds me of how I grew up and how I want to be able to offer to the things I want to be able to offer at an accessible price point, basically, because I don't think that people should have to spend a ton of money and feel guilty about something that they want to buy, like an outfit, for example. And then with Express, with More Than a Mask, which is my charity organization that contributes to Feeding America, that was also the same idea. It just hits the perfect demographic of not being so out of touch, so unreachable, and still being attainable, which is like honestly the first thing that I think about in a partnership. I want to represent a girl that a lot of people can resonate with. So that's kind of my business model as of now, but of course it's ever changing. And so we'll see.
Thank you. Lisa, talking about choices, you took a beauty brand that started in your Brooklyn home in 1993 and you sold it to L'Oreal in 2014. You still headed up. You've got 18,000 employees. Talk us about that decision, because that is a lot of hard work that gets to that decision. But ultimately, you must have been in a boardroom where you had to make the call whether you were going to sell to L'Oreal or not.
Well, the idea of needing to sell to a strategic partner was something that evolved out of taking on equity partners. So it was something that I knew would be a part of my future someday. And what I felt my role was as the founder was to ensure that it was the right strategic partner so that that next chapter of Carol's Daughter made total sense. And L'Oreal was my first choice. And thankfully, we executed what we needed to execute, and they agreed with me. And I got to get my first choice as our strategic partner. It's not so much that in that particular instance that you choose something tough or difficult. It's a combination of seeing the future and claiming what is not yet there, but then at the same time doing the work so that you get to that place. And for me, that sale was such a culmination of hard work, but also lots of prayers and faith and goodwill. It was just that perfect marriage. And it's something for which I'll always be very, very proud.
Were there any moments, Lisa, in the building of Carol's Daughter that you were like, this is the hardest month or the year, or like this is the biggest challenge that I'm coming up against in growing this? Because pretty quickly you had an amazing cult following of women that were buying into your brand and sharing about it and talking about it. But what was the most challenging part for you in building that business?
There were many, many difficult times because I started very organically. I started with, making money, reinvesting it, making money, reinvesting it. It took many years before I was able to get a loan, many years before I had equity partners in the company. So tough days were normal. And what it does, it just keeps strengthening you. So then when you get to the next one, you remember the one that happened before and you were like, you know what, girl, you got through that. You can get through this. And I honestly think the biggest obstacle that you face a lot of times as an entrepreneur is yourself, your own fear, your own anxieties, your own doubts. And when you learn how to recognize them and honor them, but not let them control you, you start to feel as if you're not just on the roller coaster getting tossed around. You're still on a roller coaster, but you've got the right straps, you're holding on, you're breathing, you have some control over how that ride is going, but you do have to recognize that it is a bit of a ride.
Thanks, Lisa. As you said, there's challenges and there's hard work and there's good days. And sometimes you are your own worst critic in building a business. Whitney, you came from very much steeped in the fashion world. Mm-hmm. But your brand is very much a 360 brand now, right? It's more than just a line. Mm-hmm. Why was that important to you?
So, I guess how it all started, I was originally in fashion before I even got on to the hills in the city. I was actually interning at Women's Wear Daily, and I heard that Teen Vogue was hiring interns, and I was like, oh, I'll apply. I'm starting USC in the fall. This will be a great internship to have while I'm at school. So I applied to Teen Vogue, and they told me, if you want the internship, great, but you have to be comfortable with cameras because we're going to be filming a TV show here. And so I was like, okay, cool, like very naive 20-year-old. And I think for me, what happened was the TV show happened very organically, but then it created this platform for me to start these different businesses. And the reason why I ended up even doing the spinoff, The City, was so that I could launch my clothing line. So I have worked really hard to try to make myself something more than just a reality TV star. I think that's been the hardest barrier for me to break, is that people look at me as someone that was just on reality TV. And so I feel like I have to constantly prove myself, even though I did really start in the fashion industry. But I think it's really important to look at those opportunities and to realize the power of media, the TV, of the power of social media, and how you can use that really to your advantage.
How much of yourself do you keep back that's for yourself? Because I think in this world now, we're seeing brands need to stand for something in order to feel like audiences really want to know what the brand stands for, what the head of the company stands for, what they believe in and what they care about. But how much of yourself do you need to preserve and hold back? Because then, especially across all the platforms, podcasting and video and social.
Yeah. So there's very little that I hold back, because I think that the brand that I've built is based on being organic and being vulnerable and showing what's really going on, both good and bad, because I think that creates the most powerful relationships with the consumers and with my followers, is really showing what's actually going on. And I remember starting this when I first got pregnant, and my husband said, I was feeling all these crappy feelings and feeling guilty about them and not excited about being pregnant. And he said, Whitney, I feel like if you feel this way, there must be so many other people out there that feel this way too. Like, why don't we just film you talking about how you're feeling? And that was really the first time that I was really vulnerable, like even more than being on TV. When I was on the hills in the city, I really did keep a lot back. And so it was that I Love My Baby Butt series on YouTube that enabled me to create this relationship with my followers and then be able to build the businesses that I've built from those relationships. So it's the relationships with them that are really the most important thing to me, and they create the foundation for everything else.
I love that. You talk about building your community around your relationships. And Alexis, you've got 16 million followers. Despite it being 2020, you've launched 2 new projects. What have you learned from what you have heard from your audience on what they want, and what have been the biggest learnings in launching 2 projects during COVID?
Yeah, so, when I came up in social media, it's interesting because these girls, they've followed me since they're 14 and now they're in college. So I have a very deep relationship with the girl following that I have. And so I struggled with perfectionism when I was around 17 or 18. And when I finally opened up about that, when I opened up about my eating disorder and all these things, I realized that I could harness a connection in which I could be a mentor, heal myself, and then also heal the other girls. So I knew that whatever companies I would build, I just wanted to reflect my own challenges, my own strength, and then help them in that way. So with Warriors per se, it's a gated online fitness and wellness community. And I made it more so about fitness because I knew that if I could get the girls into the door, and then I show them, hey, look, mind body is actually one word. And if you really want to understand what self-care is, it's not that fun. But if we can all have a community together, then we can go through this hard stuff together. And I really think with social media, the one thing that's been lacking is community. And I'm glad that you brought that up at the beginning, because it's been a conversation this year that I've been having, whether it be in the environmental space or the mental health space or fitness. It's just being able to have accountability sisters and brothers is what truly helps us evolve, because we're social creatures. So Warriors has been really amazing because of COVID. Actually, it started because I was just this is an opportunity. I have downtime. I can actually connect to these girls that I know we have a deep connection with, because whenever I meet them, they're like, I feel like I know you because I literally grew up with you on social media. And I'm like, that's so crazy. And so when I launched it, and we have an online chat, and we all talk, and we do a live call every Friday. So it's literally hundreds of girls on the live call, and we get to write our manifestations and just evolve together and really be vulnerable. And it's been really amazing. We also have a eating disorder mentee. We also have a dietitian, and we work I always want the companies that I build to be just 3% more spiritual than people would expect, because when you really understand how the universe works, it's you have to have both. There has to be both. But at the same time, I know that being 2-week abs is a clickbait per se. And so I'm just I'll get you in the door, but then I'll make you stay because we're growing together. So there's that.
When you say make you stay and growing together, is it really, Warriors is based on a subscription model, right? Is that where the core of the business? Do you see it as something that will delve into merchandise and product, or really do you see subs and community being the heart of not only what it is, but also where the revenue comes from?
Yeah, I definitely see the community being the most important part, and just being able to speak to me kind of how we're speaking. There will be more product oriented things, but a lot of them will still be virtual. I do want it to come out with its own clothing brand, but I'm really conscious, especially now that I'm in the environmental space and the sustainability space with Future Prosperity, that I have to be really mindful of like where I put my foot. And there needs to be a story. I think like when it comes to companies, the story behind it, your why is like the most valuable and important part. And it's what creates like that long lasting connection. So it will be built out, and then eventually we'll maybe bring on men. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, so just having like different areas for it. It's kind of like, I want it to be like the Netflix of just your favorite people. And also like my whole thing too is like, I don't want professional trainers, like, I just want these girls that are like in my field that, you know, have this huge influence, that can come on and not have to like be perfect and can like throw on pajamas and like do a workout in pajamas and, you know, like then throw that on there and then be actually making like monthly profit every month from just like genuinely being better. Cause like I did a 30-day challenge where I literally recorded myself working out every single day. And it was so amazing to like have to hold myself accountable for that. And then all the other girls were holding themselves accountable for that. And so we were kind of like all in it together. And then at the end on the last live call of that challenge, they all like wrote little thank you notes to me. And it was just the most emotional thing. Cause it's just, it is about the workouts, but like being able to do it together, the community is the most valuable part.
I love that. And I think, Katie, when you think about community, I think what FabFitFun has built is this consumer community, which is very much a subscription-based model as well. How hard was that to build over time? Because now, you know, when the drops happen, everybody's socializing, they're talking about what they got in their box. And it's almost the excitement of an album drop with some consumer subscription model. What were the most interesting learnings in building that community and that subscription model for you throughout your time at FabFitFun?
So, you know, I think from the very beginning, you know, as I mentioned, we sort of knew that we wanted to evolve the newsletter. And honestly, we tested quite a few different models, but kept coming back to this idea of subscription. And at the time, you know, the box space was pretty niche with, you know, makeup sample boxes really being the biggest player. But there was nothing that was really looking at a woman holistically. And, you know, we believe that women are smart, multifaceted beings with many interests. But again, you know, I really loved the model. And, you know, as an editor, you know, I loved trying new things. I loved getting packages in the mail. But if I'm being completely honest, you know, the idea of paying for samples when you could get them for free at Sephora just seemed really bizarre because I'm very cheap. And so, you know, we believed that we could do it a little better, and we had grown a very loyal following, and, you know, we thought it was time to test the waters. And I think, you know, that idea of testing is really key. We didn't have all of the answers. You know, I was incredibly terrified. You know, unlike my co-founders, I wasn't sure if we were going to sell a single box, but we believed in the idea. And I think, you know, that's really what I think it takes, right? You know, you have to be willing to take the risk. To know that you might fail, to honestly know that at some point you're going to fail. And I don't think anyone is ever 100% ready. You know, there's always going to be curveballs and roadblocks. But if you are, you know, really willing to put the work in, you know, to learn from your mistakes, and to take advice without ego, you know, you're going to be on the right path. And I think, you know, for us from the very early days, you know, being able to speak directly to our community was a huge part of our success. You know, I always joke that, you know, our members, you know, really think of themselves as our fourth co-founder. But the truth of it is, you know, within our community, they are in there day and night, you know, talking about what they love about the membership and just as often what they hate. And they're very willing to tag me personally about it, and they expect a response. And I mean, the truth of it is I'm in there day and night, and that real-time feedback from our members is incredibly powerful. And, you know, we've taught them, we've instilled this idea that their feedback really does help guide our strategy and create a better membership. So that connection that I think so many of us have touched on today has been, you know, really, really important to our success and growth.
I love that. And connection and story are two things that keep coming up over and over again in this conversation. And Whitney talked about the vulnerability of her video series, and Alexis talked about how the story of the why of your company is so important. As an editor-in-chief who sees lots of people come in the door when we were in offices, at least in World Trade Center, my first question is, why did you start this company and what's the story behind it? And I think for those listening in, that may be one of the most important things to grasp early on is, what do you stand for and why are you doing it? Lisa, when you started your journey, was that front and center of what you wanted to do with your beauty brand?
No, when I started, I didn't know that it would be what it is today. So to me, it was something that was small and precious and private and organic. And I just wanted it to be something that I was proud of. And I wanted to make other women feel good. I wanted them to feel happy. I used to look at the products as food for their hair, for their skin, and for their souls. And, you know, I didn't know that it would resonate the way that it did. I didn't know that it would grow the way that it did. But I really did start from that passion and the idea of, I used to have as a tagline, beauty by nature. And as the company evolved, a lot of people assumed that I was referring to being a natural beauty company, but I actually wasn't. I was referring to the fact that what's beautiful about us is inherent. We can't put it on and we can't take it off. It's always with us. It's always within us. And it's things that we do to pull it out, to recognize it, to say hello to it, to embrace it. It's always there. It's something that is just a part of our beings. And that's what I wanted to highlight. No matter what you look like, no matter what society says you're supposed to look like, you are a beautiful person. And there is beauty within you and around you. And I want you to see it, and I want you to love it, and I want you to love yourself in the process. That was my passion.
And when you talk about it like that, do you think that was what immediately resonated with investors or L'Oreal, the story behind it, or was it the numbers that showed them the light in terms of, or is it a mixture of the two, right? Because there's a lot of people that will be listening in that maybe they're better storytellers than they are Excel sheets of budgets, but do combine that you need in terms of having a good business, right?
It's definitely a combination of those things, because you do have to make money in order for a business to be viable, but it doesn't have to be all about the money. And I think it was clear to people who invested in the brand early on, and then to L'Oreal as well, that there were efficacious products for sure. There was a story, there was loyalty with consumers, and you were getting a real authentic person as a founder. And what you can see from everyone who is on this panel, we have the ability to sell product to people, but we also have the empathy to care about what we're selling, why we're selling, to whom we're selling. And then we also happen to be smart when it comes to money, and we know how to make a coin when we need to. And when you learn how to do that, it actually makes it easier for you to be empathetic and for you to do the things that Alexis is doing with her community, because she's got to balance the revenue with the love. More revenue, more love.
Well, when you were working with the Obama administration on the Women's Business Council, was there anything that kept coming up over and over again for women's businesses versus men's businesses, or was there a challenge in particular that you saw those female businesses facing that maybe those male-led companies didn't have?
We were specifically targeting why women-owned businesses only reached a certain income level, the majority of them, and they didn't move on. We discovered that women had very, very hard times growing above a 2 million price point, had a hard time getting capital, getting people to invest in their companies. And what we discovered, because we decided not just to focus on the women within the companies, but also look at the industry. And what we were learning was women were so accustomed to having to do more with less, particularly women of color, that when we sat down in front of financial people, we sat down in front of bankers, we weren't actually asking for what we truly needed. We were asking for what we thought we'd get and what we could make do. So the banker on the other side is looking and saying, she needs like 3 times as much money as what she's asking for. Clearly, she doesn't know her business. And what we were imploring the banks to do was to dig a little deeper and ask more questions and recognize that a woman is actually going to make that dollar stretch further. And you may need to lean into that conversation and kind of pull out of her what her business sense is, and don't just assume from her application that she isn't qualified. But that was a very, very big thing. We're accustomed to doing a lot with a little, so we don't really ask for what we actually need.
You don't ask for more. And it's so interesting talking to so many female entrepreneurs that is some of the most difficult conversations going into investors, especially if it's a female focused company, right? Whether it's, around beauty or fashion, and you're sitting across from a table of maybe 5 men that don't understand not only the need for your product, but also the passion behind what that product is. It's often hard in those situations to ask for what you want or ask for more or just what you need. Olivia, when you have conversations around investing in your business and your brand and your companies, what are the most telling things you've learned in those conversations as an entrepreneur?
I found in my own entrepreneurial ventures that are obviously ever changing and continuing to grow, and I learn more every single day, but I really found that I invest more in people than anything. It's an energy, it's a camaraderie, it's a connection that isn't always even easy to describe, but I think it's that entrepreneurial spirit that you have to make sure is there between the whole team. And I feel so lucky because everyone that I work with make my dreams possible, but they're not my dreams, they're our dreams. And that teamwork and having people around you that lift you up and bring out the best in you is so important. We've talked so much about how we can all be our own worst enemies. And I mean, the realities of the world sometimes, or our own perceptions of ourselves, or what the world tells us that we are, can really kind of pollute our brain. So having people around you that share the common vision is so important. And I found that in everything that I've done. We just need to always make sure, first and foremost, our mindset is in the right place, because if that's not there, we won't be able to achieve anything. So I would say, for me, finding people with that common ground so that we can make our dreams come true. And it's not about you, it's about the consumer, and that being the number one priority in building that brand.
I love that. Whitney, what have you learned in terms of either asking people to believe in your businesses or asking for money, which sometimes, listen, let's be honest, it's whether it's a friends and family investment round or it's a corporate VC investment round, these are hard conversations to go into. What have you learned in those process in getting people to invest time, money, or energy in your business?
It is extremely challenging because sometimes, like everyone keeps saying, you are your own worst enemy. And for me, it's hard to really be a salesperson. I don't really feel comfortable selling myself or selling things, which is odd to believe because a lot of what we do on social media is selling ourselves and the products that we endorse and the products that we make. So it's really about, instead of just thinking about selling something, it's about what is the meaning behind what you're selling. So for me, I've invested in a couple companies whose mission I thought just meant a lot and would actually make a difference in people's lives. One company is called Boomo, which actually before COVID was supposed to bring childcare services into like Fortune 500 companies so that women didn't have to send their children to daycare and they could actually have these services within their offices. And now they've pivoted a little bit and do more virtual learning experiences. And then another company who's actually making disinfectant wipes and cleaning products, but that everything is eco-friendly and sustainable. And so it's about finding companies whose mission you believe in. And then in terms of selling yourself, really being able to not care what other people think about you selling yourself, to be confident in what you're selling, and to try not to project your own insecurities, because I think that inhibits a lot of us from selling ourselves. But we have so much to give, and so even though someone may not be interested, that isn't a personal thing. It's sometimes just business. So it's a lot about taking your ego out of it and realizing that a lot of it is just business.
I love that. Katie, can I ask you, I think there's a really interesting conversation happening more and more, and in particular in this year, about how we were making space for the next woman of color, the product. FabFitFun you guys have, you choose what goes into that box. You choose who you hire. What are you guys doing as a company to make it a more, as we all should be, looking to make it more inclusive space and lift up women, and in particular women of color, in what we highlight or amplify or tell stories around?
Yeah. So I think it's so important for all of us to use our platforms to influence change. And that's not a one-time social media post. It really is so much more than that. It's, creating diversity within your walls through your hiring practices. And of course, for us, as you mentioned, it's working with a diverse and inclusive, set of brand partners, influencers, and talent season out over season. And, our membership itself is so incredibly diverse. And we want all of our marketing and merchandising efforts to reflect that. And, we really are storytellers at heart. And from that very first box creation, one of our goals has been, finding brands with the most interesting stories. And sure, that can be, from some of the bigger, more heritage brands that, happen to be run by older white gentlemen. We'll still take all the Estee Lauder that you want to give us. But, for us, it was really important to find brands that speak to and represent, our truly diverse membership. And we've been very intentional about supporting female-founded brands, brands founded by people of color, brands targeting all different kinds of age groups. And look, these days we have a pretty big platform, and we are making an impact by the choices of who we work with, placing what are now pretty meaningful POs and telling their stories, through our magazine, videos, social founder chats, et cetera. And this is still very much a work in progress, but we're excited for an opportunity to create some real change, and not when it's, just a hot button issue, but really every single day. And, we've been lucky enough to work with Whitney in the past, but all of you other ladies, expect an email from me coming soon after our panel.
I love that. Alexis, what are you thinking as you grow this? Diversity and inclusion is super important to the Gen Z market. They're very vocal about it. They're very, and they put their dollars behind their values. And you're seeing that more and more every year. What are you doing in your efforts in terms of inclusion and diversity, and what's important to you as you build your brand and your business?
Yeah, well, I love even what Olivia said with having dreams come true together. One of the things that I really wanted to do is hire within the community. And so what we do is we're giving intern jobs to some of the girls who are actually on the membership, and also just bringing on my friends. I think that's the most important part for me, is bringing on people that have actually inspired me in my own life, whether it's my friend Monique Coleman or my co-founder from Vanessa Black from Future Prosperity. Just giving opportunity to the people around me that I love the most is super important, and also incorporating different cultural stories. I think that's super, super, it's just what my generation has always been passionate about, is just being well, why are the way that things are, why are this way? And why can't we change them? Why can't we bend these rules? Who said this? Why, there is, and then once we're kind of realizing, oh, this is all kind of made up and we can really just evolve how we want to, that's when we can come together, right? So I love the fact that we are hiring the interns, which means that we can let these girls write their own stories in the blog. So they get to write a little diary entry on why they joined, what they hope from it. So just giving those opportunities, and then they have that on their resume. And I really just want to give not only the girls whom I've hired outside of the community, but within the community, a chance to actually accomplish their dreams through us.
I love that. One thing I want to touch on with all of you, because I think there's so much of it happening in all of your businesses, is e-commerce and what, the evolution of e-commerce. We do a good bit of it at Glamour, and this year it's been interesting to watch as the editor, where last year would have been a lot of beauty and style. And when I say beauty, kind of lipstick and makeup, now it's more skincare this year, and plants and home, and people's shopping has changed. They're actually shopping more online than ever before, but they're shopping for more variety. There was a lot of cookware, sold at the start of COVID when everybody thought they were baking banana breads and making all these things. What have you seen in the e-commerce game, Lisa, that has been interesting in the evolution of how people are buying products online, and what are the trends you're really excited about?
Well, for Carol's daughter, e-commerce has always been key. I'm grateful that I got into that relatively early. It's been interesting watching the retailers that we work with really amp up their e-commerce spaces, their shopping via social spaces. It was things that they were doing, but they're doing it even more now. I find that people are researching things online, but then avoiding having to go to a store. So then they do all of their research, and before they would go to the store for the experience, now the experience is not quite what it used to be. Maybe they don't want to wait online, have to get their temperature taken, etc. So they're ordering it, having it delivered, doing the curbside pickup, but it all involves being online. That's not going away. It's not going to change. The technology is going to continue to improve. Now stores that didn't even pick up the phone when we called them before are coming outside to our cars, handing us packages. Who's going to wait online in a store ever again? No. You've spoiled me now. So
really valid. People can completely change how they shop and what they expect in service. And even personally, I'll order something when I know the returns are easy. So like if you're making the returns difficult for me, I'm not going to order, especially if it's in the fashion world, because I need it to be easy in case I don't like it. And I think that, even just that, in a world where, do I have to go to FedEx or UPS, or where do I have to go with this return, is an important thing that people think about when they're purchasing at this stage. Whitney, I see you nodding along. What have you learned in the e-commerce space this year in particular?
Yeah, well, this, it was very hard and interesting because I have a collection with Rent the Runway that was supposed to launch in April. And we had to continually push it just because people did not want to accept packages. People did not want to be wearing clothes that were rented. And so was constantly thinking about like pivoting and how we can actually make this an enjoyable experience and something that women want to take part in. And so actually Rent the Runway and I discussed not only now being able to purchase items so that you don't have to feel the pressure to rent, but also making sure that we were donating a percentage of the proceeds to organizations that really needed it. Like last season, we did a 10% to Until We Do It, which provides medical gear for underprivileged communities. So it's about pivoting your business a little bit and also starting to do things not for the sake of just selling something, but things that bring out your creativity and bring joy to you. So for me, like I always wanted to develop a candle collection, but it was like so random and I never knew how I was going to do it. And this quarantine period really allowed me to dig into that. And I launched a candle collaboration with this home goods company in favor of, and it was one of the most enjoyable collaborations I've ever done because I actually felt like I was bringing something warm and cozy into people's homes, that really needed it right now. And it was
the uptick in home. The mattresses, sheets, plants, candles, it's skyrocketed this year, right?
Yes, because people just want to feel nurtured and we're living all of our lives in our home. And so it's all about creating an environment for ourselves where we can feel happy and peaceful and productive. And so I didn't even really care how much the candles sold. I just was excited to be able to do something that was going to bring some warmth into people's homes. And I think that ends up taking your company in a whole different direction. And now there's different directions like in home goods and things that I never thought I would get into that now I'm so excited to dive into deeper.
I love that. Katie, in the box, has it changed this year what you put in it because so many people are staying at home, quarantining. I see you're in a beautiful kitchen with beautiful cookware. Like, what you put into the box, has it changed because of 2020?
I mean, look, I think we're always evolving and pivoting in order to meet the needs of our members. The box in itself is a little tricky because we are curating those boxes 9 to 12 months in advance. And I don't think anyone could have predicted the pandemic that has been 2020. Now, that said, we have a pretty big e-com experience as well. And I think, when the sort of pandemic hit, our merchandising team did a really amazing job of, finding the essentials that our members were craving. And, on one hand, it was things like sanitizers, masks, just things that they didn't necessarily have. But like we've all touched on, it is the idea that we are all spending more time in our home. So whether it's, office equipment or home gym, that's been huge, the sort of in-home fitness space. I mean, I don't know who wants to go into the gym right now and touch all of the other equipment that 100 people have touched before them. It all seems very scary. So being able to, create this environment and make it really beautiful has been where a lot of the e-com curations have gone. And I think, for us, whether it's COVID or just sort of the natural evolution of retail, we've really seen things shift, right? At one point, not that long ago, everybody went into their sort of neighborhood store and you were limited by the items that were stocked on that shelf. And those were the things that you had access to. Then, of course, the internet came on to the scene, and this idea of everything at any time, whether you were shopping from Amazon or whatever, became the new normal. I think for us, we don't see a lot of joy or fun in that endless rabbit hole that makes up so many of these, giant, online retailers. And for us, that's why curation has to be a part of everything we do, right? We know people are still limited in time. We don't have hours and hours to search endlessly. So that's why we want to do that work for you. We only want to present you with the best of the best items each season and take sort of the work out of all of the shopping and just get you the joy of having those new experiences because of the things that you find through FabFitFun.
Love that. Olivia, talking about somebody that met the moment, you created masks collaborations when nobody knew we were going to need masks this year, and you're pretty quick on the button in terms of working not only on a mask collaboration but a philanthropic one. Who tell us about that process for you? How quickly did that come to fruition?
Well, I'm sure everyone on this call can agree, something that really rocked my world, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, was just how blessed I am and what a privilege I have to be able to make a difference. And I was feeling really depressed. I was feeling really sad. I felt like I wasn't doing enough and I didn't know how I could. So I kind of just I put all my thoughts together. I thought, okay, I know people like fashion. I know people maybe like me for that. And I also know that I'm not afraid to work really hard. So I did a lot of research and I realized that something as simple as someone's next meal is the most difficult thing for people during the pandemic, even more so than medical bills, all these other things that at the time it kind of shocked me that it was just something so simple as food. So that's why I started More Than a Mask, and I decided to partner with Feeding America. And it was just an idea that I actually had to sell to a lot of people because we were all working for absolutely no money. It was all just time and all just love and good energy. And now we've sold almost 1.5 million, provided almost 1.5 million meals. I never thought that would have been a possibility at the beginning. And of course, it's something I'm so grateful for. But I think something that in general we've seen a lot in e-commerce is just the ethos of someone's brand. What are you standing for? What really matters to you? And also, sometimes we've been even disappointed in the past year, kind of taking that really into consideration. There are some brands that maybe we were let down by, and then other brands that you see, wow, they really stepped up to the plate. And in general, just going back to your other question. I think that that's another thing in e-commerce I've seen a lot of. Like, you just see a lot of people with this moral obligation to do better because we're so blessed that we can. And that's been really exciting to see.
Alexis, thank you so much, Olivia. Alexis, are you seeing that with, Gen Z, young millennials, that they're really putting their dollar behind things they care about and communities they care about and brands that stand for something? What are you hearing from them?
Yeah, because of social media, it's like all these kids have voices now. So we're hearing them very loud and very clear. We have, girls like Greta who've stood up and been like, I'm not dealing with this anymore. I don't want to live in a society 20 years from now when it'll look like this or whatever it is. So just seeing that is just really beautiful. Because growing up, I was always like, why do we have to be 18 to like have a say in the way that our world is going to be turned out? Like, that just never made sense to me. I was homeschooled. So I was just never really in the systems that usually, and my mom was always kind of like, think for yourself, really figure this out, what actually works for you, be a change maker and see how you can help people evolve. So that's been really interesting. Yeah.
Great. And final question for all of you. I could stay talking to you for hours, to be fair, but I know you are very busy women with very busy empires to run. But I want your one piece of advice for the potential or the already entrepreneurs that are listening into this summit. What is the one thing that you want them to take away from today or in building their business? Lisa, I'll go to you first.
Oh my goodness, the pressure. Always know your why and always remember your story. It is something that at some point you may feel tired of telling. You may feel like everyone should know it already, but your story is where everything flows from. It's your marketing, it's your ethos, it's your company mission, it's the colors that you choose, it's your font, it's everything, and it is your why. And when things are difficult, that why should always still make sense. And it's your North Star. So always, always know why you're doing what you're doing and own and honor your story.
I love that, North Star. I use that terminology the whole time when I'm talking about stuff at work. Olivia, what's your one takeaway for the entrepreneurs or potential entrepreneurs on this call listening in?
I would say, oh God, well, there's so much, but for me, my number one that I always try to continue to really channel is do not live in fear. Do not live in fear of failing, of people judging you, of making the wrong decision, of you, because essentially all those things are going to help you grow, help us grow. I mean, I would say just living boldly and believing in yourself and channeling that energy over fear you will always win. Even if it looks like you failed, you're learning from that. And channeling that energy and keeping that energy is what I think is one of the most pivotal things you'll see in anybody that's successful. It's not that they fell, it's maybe that they fell and got back up. Because a lot of people will fall and then they won't get back up. And you really look at the most successful people out there, they failed, they just got back up.
Use fear as a driver sometimes to kind of just keep you going and exactly, love that. Katie, what's your advice?
Well, I couldn't agree with Olivia more. And I would say, similarly that, perseverance and not perfection is really number one. I think all of, the very role specific skills can be learned on the job, but if you don't have, that drive and determination when you're starting, that's where I think the challenge comes. And, it often is not easy. And, you have to be ready for a lot of no's and, have a thick skin and have tough conversations and, receive what sometimes can feel like harsh feedback. When we launched the box, my world was, truly filled with cold calling, so much event networking and so many no's. People told us that subscriptions were a gimmick. They didn't understand that we were trying to change, the way people shop to create, a more sort of valuable, simple experience. And, certainly the brands were not too keen about, selling us products at cost or understanding, the impact that we could make on their business. And, while the no's were certainly tough, I think the success was really pushing through them and turning those no's into just not right now. And honestly, sometimes I get a little embarrassed by the number of emails that I sent to so many CMOs at so many giant companies. But the truth of it is that now, you know, so many of those brands are in our boxes in sales, and now they're the ones coming back and asking us to do it again. So
it's thick skin, I think, is really important for an entrepreneur. Completely agree. Whitney, what's your advice?
I think, I mean, like everybody else, there's so many things that I could say, but I think it's really about being unapologetically yourself. And I think it's about highlighting what makes you unique, because I think sometimes when we have ideas, we're comparing ourselves to other people, how far along this person is on their journey, what's this person doing, how is this person perceiving me? And I think that it's so important to shut out all those other voices. And even though, yes, it is important to listen to the no's and take the criticism and, you know, not let your ego lead the way, you do have to let what makes you unique shine and not compare yourself to anybody else, and know that no's are inevitable. Like, there's no entrepreneur out there that is going to tell you that it was just this easy path all the way up. Like, it's going to go like this, and that's inevitable. And it's just part of the process and part of what's going to make you figure out who you really are as an entrepreneur.
And finally, final piece of advice from Alexis.
Yeah, I mean, Lisa put it so profoundly, but I really believe in the why. I think that's what's going to create longevity in not only the brand, but in the legacy itself. And then also, like, to get to your why is just really like sitting with yourself, and not on like the fun, like, oh, we'll have a spa night kind of a vibe, but like sitting with yourself in those meditation with those thoughts that you don't particularly like to identify as yourself, and really getting to know like your clear path. And then also being cool. I feel like pivot has been the word of the year for everyone. I've just heard it so many times. It makes me smile because I love that word, because it's like such a soft way of being like, it's not good. We'll just pivot. Oh, that's not working. We'll just pivot. So like, don't be afraid of like that pivot, and just know that needed to happen in order for you to get to where you're going. Because it really is all divine. As long as you are centered within yourself, you are connected to up there. Like, it really is just as simple as just getting out of your own way.
I love it. Such valuable insight from such fantastic women. Alexis, Lisa, Olivia, Katie, Whitney, thank you so much for joining this conversation. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. I loved listening to all of you speak today and seeing your faces and hearing your stories. You have blessed me beyond measure. This was fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I feel like we should all get together for a cocktail when we can. Like, I feel like this needs to be in real life over cocktails when the opportunity and the world lets us do that.
For sure. This is a good crew.
Alrighty, let's book it. Maybe like 5 months from now, maybe.
Yeah. Right? Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you guys. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.